Excellencies, distinguished dignitaries at the high table and in the audience, ambassadors, permanent representatives, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start with a warm welcome in this cold and rainy day here in Washington, D.C., to this high-level opening ceremony of the 7th Global South-South Development Expo. My name is Alfonso Quiñones. I am the Secretary of External Relations here at the Organization of American States. I want to welcome you all to the House of the Americas, the Organization of American States headquarters here in Washington, D.C. We are very glad to be hosting this event at such a critical time in the global development arena. This Global South-South Development Expo now has a significant 7-year track record of showcasing innovative thoughts and solutions from South to the many challenges that are being faced by our countries in the world. Its motto is solutions, solutions, solutions. And this challenges each of us as practitioners to find better and more effective solutions within our respective spheres of influence and also areas of expertise. Ebola is unfortunately illustrating how interconnected and interdependent we are, and how important is cooperation and how the solutions are coming from the South and not just only from the North. This year's Expo theme, Scaling Up South-South and Triangular Cooperation for Sustainable Development, provide us with a great platform to learn from each other, to build bridges, establish partnerships, encourage innovation, and establish strategies to generate even more solutions together. Before going any further, please let me recognize and give special thanks to our host, Secretary General of the OAS, Jose Miguel Insulza, for agreeing to hold the Global South-South Development Expo here at the Organization of American States. And also, I want to recognize and thank my colleagues here at the OAS who have been working hard to ensure that everything is ready for a productive week of work. This event is also being webcasted, so also to give people around the world the possibility of participating virtually. The Global South-South Development Expo would have not been possible without the vision and leadership of the chief organizer, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, and the Secretariat of the UN General Assembly's High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. They have brought together an important cross-section of UN agencies and partners to truly deliver as one. And so, in addition to OAS, we wish to acknowledge the valuable contributions of the Secretariat of the UN General Assembly's High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation and all the co-sponsors of our past and present solution forums, and also the panelists, including FAO, ILO, IFAD, UNFPD, UNCDF, IFC, UNAIDS, UNDESA, IDB, UNDP, UNEP, UNESCO, UN Women, WHO, WFP, UNIDO, PAHO, the World Bank, UNFCCC, UNECE, UNICEF, UN Volunteers, UNWTO, ITU, UNCTAD, UN Global Compact, UNITAR, UN Office of Partnerships, and WIPO. As you can see, all the relevant actors are here and are supporting this event. We would also like to recognize our major collaborators: Japan International Cooperation Agency, FK Norway, ADEC Innovation, OECD DAC, Society for International Development, the World Alliance of Cities Against Poverty, and the general support received from the governments of Qatar, Egypt, Malaysia, India, South Africa, China, Brazil, and Korea. Now let me proceed to introduce the distinguished persons that are here at the high table. His Excellency Jose Miguel Insulza, Secretary General of the Organization of American States. His Excellency Abdul Kalam Abdul Momen, President of UN High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. Representing the chair-elect of the Group of 77 in 2015, Mr. Murad Ahmad, Executive Secretary of the Group of 77, Ms. Gina Casar, Undersecretary General and Associate Administrator of UNDP, Mr. Ling Young, Director General of UN Industrial Development Organization, Mr. Christian Fries Bach, Executive Secretary of UN Economic Commission for Europe, Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of la Secretaría General Iberoamericana, and Mr. Yiping So, Envoy of UN Secretary General on South-South Cooperation and Director of the UN Office of South-South Cooperation. Also, I want to recognize the following persons seated in the front row. On behalf of the Chair of the OECD DAC, Mr. Eric Solheim, is Mr. John Lemoy, Director of the OECD Development Cooperation Directorate. On behalf of Director General of FAO, Mr. Jose Graciana da Silva, is here with us Mr. Nicholas Nelson, Director of FAO Liaison Office in North America. On behalf of Executive Director of UNEP, Mr. Akim Steiner, is here with us Mr. Muyaradatsi Chenhong, Director of Regional Support Office of UNEP. On behalf of Director General of the ILO, Mr. Guy Ryder, is here with us Mr. Jürgen Schwethmann, Director of Partnerships and Field Support. Let me ask all of you to welcome the personalities with a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my great honor to invite Mr. Yiping So, Envoy of the UN Secretary General on South-South Cooperation and Director of the UN Office of South-South Cooperation, which is the Secretariat to the UN General Assembly High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation, to give us introductory remarks. Please, Mr. So, you have the floor.
Honorable leaders at the high table, honorable ministers, directors general for development cooperation, mayors, CEOs, CSO leaders, ambassadors, and all participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Global United Nations South-South Development Expo 2014. As the organizer and your facilitator, and I'm truly honored and privileged and also humbled to welcome you to this beautiful chamber of the OAS. And I just wanted to thank the Secretary General of the OAS and his team for so generously offering us this venue, and who have been working with my team and with the colleagues of the UN system, 25 more UN system organizations, to prepare for this expo which we are having here today. And thank you so very much for coming. What started as a small idea back in 2005, the Global South-South Development Expo has been transformed into an annual event that brings together many various development partners, governments, the private sector, the CSOs, NGOs, the CEOs, the mayors, and all our UN system family to celebrate the diversity and creativity in the Global South by showcasing the successes and the pride of the Global South, and also to celebrate together with the partners from the OECD DAC and the industrial countries and the UN system, and to find a way how we can actually scaling up the impact of the Southern successes so that together we can probably achieve the MDGs and beyond as we move to shape the post-2015 development agenda. Dear participants, we are very fortunate to have had, since 2008, the very first Expo hosted by UNDP, which is my mother organization, our mother organization, and I'm very proud that our associate administrator, Gina, is right here with us. The first Expo in 2008 was truly the pioneering Expo, which was launched by the then administrator and the Secretary General Kofi Annan back in New York. Since then, we came to Washington in 2009. That was the second global expo hosted by the World Bank. And at that time, both the president and the 3 vice presidents of the World Bank all gave the blessing and contributed to the second global expo. And then we moved to the third one in ILO, when we focus on the decent work and for everybody in Geneva, and the one that in 2011 FAO hosted us. We focus on food security. UNIDO, whose Director General, Mr. Lee Yung, is right here with us, hosted our 2012 Expo when we started to focus on the industrialization. I'm very happy that he's going to today reveal his new vision for the South in terms of making the South more sustainable through sustainable industrial development. And last year in Nairobi, our UNEP hosted our expo when we had 1,500 participants. We focused on the green economy and climate change. And here again, we are here in Washington, D.C., as the world and the UN together shaping up the post-2015 development agenda. This expo is focusing on the scaling up South-South and triangular solutions towards achieving the sustainable development goals. So I think you will witness during the next 4 days, we have 8 scaling up sessions. Each would focus on one of the emerging SDGs and MDGs. We have 4 mini forums. They would also focus on partnership, civil society participation, and the private sector engagement in South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation. And also, we have a major Directors General Forum, which we have every year. And I'm very happy that many of the DGs from far from Asia, Latin America, Africa, Arab states, and CIS are right here with us. And so this year, this Expo comes at a time when we are about to transition to the post-2015 development agenda centered on sustainable development, hence the theme of this Expo, Scaling Up South-South Triangular Cooperation for Sustainable Development. Dear participants, we are here because we have a very strong belief and conviction that solutions to today's challenges and tomorrow's can be found in the global South. And every country, regardless of the level and size of economy, has something to offer to each other. And therefore, we are all here to celebrate solutions and to move those solutions forward. The high-level leadership roundtable itself will give us a new vision, the way that South-South and triangular cooperation could actually contribute to implementing the post-2015 agenda. And the Forum on Accessible Tourism, which is chaired by the the DESA, will also show us how an inclusive society can be, that disabled people will actually also be participating effectively in the implementation of the SDGs. And all of these events, you would also observe the more than 100 solutions in the exhibition, physical exhibition, as well as those forums. But all of these events will culminate in a newly designed segment, the new Global Partnership Roundtable, with mayors, CEOs, investors, and all the participants at this meeting. That partnership will be facilitated by the Global South-South Assets and Technology Exchange. And once again, I just wanted to say that how grateful I am to all the 25 plus UN organizations. Without you, this Expo would not take place. And we are very happy, although we have a very small team and small budget, but I think with all your efforts, all your input, this Expo is going to be a great success. And with these few welcoming remarks, and I wish you a very successful Expo 2014. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. So, for setting the stage for our meeting. And now I have the honor to offer the floor to His Excellency Jose Miguel Insulza, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, to give us welcoming and opening remarks. Secretary.
Good morning and welcome to the home of the Organization of American States, the oldest multilateral organization in the world, and also a regional organization of the United Nations. We welcome all of you to the Global South Development Expo 2014. This annual meeting, where we seek in new ways to boost and expand South-South cooperation for sustainable development. As you well know, this organization, which comprises all the independent nations of the Americas, is rooted on two basic convictions: that dialogue is preferable to conflict, and that cooperation will be the natural fruit of that dialogue. Therefore, all our work makes cooperation a core part of its raison d'etre. These convictions have driven an American tradition of meetings, understandings, cooperation that have endowed this part of the world with an ongoing disposition to peace and stability, practically unique in contemporary world history. It is that tradition that explains how our organization has not only survived as the principal and oldest hemispheric political forum. Actually, with the name of Pan-American Union, it was settled in this same room in April 1910. That's about 104 years ago. And as I say, all our member states, all the states of the Americas, have members of the organization. We have managed to develop the shared understanding of democracy, and around that we have founded the organization around four pillars, which are democracy, human rights, security, and development. The states of the Americas have managed to develop the shared understanding in instruments that constitute the legal and constitutional framework that have developed over many years. We have a significant system of cooperation for democracy that has allowed us to strengthen institutions and address, through the governments of the Americas, some of the principal problems besetting the peoples of our region. To mention just a few of those institutional achievements, let me cite our electoral observation system, support for electoral institutions, support for civil registries, strengthening of the legislative branches of government, and more recently, cooperation for effective governance. In the same way, however, we have also responded collectively and effectively, I should say, to situations that imperil this legitimate exercise of power on the democratic process in any of our member countries. We also respond to situations that pose challenges to regional or bilateral peace and security, and mediate wherever tensions arise between countries. Effective protection of human rights is another pillar of our cooperation work at the Organization of American States. Our Inter-American human rights system comprises, on the one hand, an independent and autonomous commission that issues reports and recommendations to the member states, and on the other, a Court of Justice which hears the cases referred to it by the Commission. Only over the 9 past years, this Commission has reviewed almost 15,000 cases that citizens of the Americas have presented to it, and referred 120 of those cases to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. We also cooperate under the shared concept of security, which guides the activities of our organization for longer than the past decade, based on a multidimensional approach, focusing on human beings and taking into consideration traditional and new threats to security. Thanks to this new approach, we have made robust progress in recent years with regional cooperation on public security, on the drug problem, and on ways to counter terrorist threats. The Organization of American States works to sustain the efforts of its member states in achieving sustainable and inclusive economic, human, and social development. Together with security and human rights, this development democracy nexus exemplifies the mutually reinforcing work of the organization. Working together with ministries of foreign affairs, labor, education, tourism, social development, sustainable development, science and technology, and of course I should also mention our sister organizations, the Pan American Health Unit, the organization, Pan American Health Organization, and the Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, which are born of treaties signed here at the Organization of American States. The OAS has pioneered an all-of-government approach that constitutes an important competitive advantage in the formulation and implementation of an integrated development agenda. The U.S. serves as a hub organization for regular cooperation, for building networks, identifying areas for collaboration, mobilizing human, technical, and financial resources for effective programming, and helping to advance South-South and triangular cooperation. We are known for the effective collaborative networks and communities of practice that have taken this South-South cooperation to a new level and positioned the OAS as a solution multiplier. Through the sharing of experiences and capacities, networks such as the Inter-American Competitiveness Network, Inter-American Social Protection Network, Inter-American Teachers Network, Inter-American Network for Labor Administration, and the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas are helping countries to make generational leaps in advancing towards sustainable development, economic growth, and social inclusion. This is the organization that welcomes you this morning and trusts that this meeting will duly achieve its objectives. We hope that this House, home for more than a century to dialogue and understanding, will foster encounters among actors from many backgrounds, those seeking solutions and those who can provide them, those who have financial resources and those who have projects that need to be financed, politicians and entrepreneurs, educators and students, so that they can form partnerships and associations that enable initiatives already tested in one area to be implemented and enhanced in another. Thank you one more time for accepting to host our offer to host this meeting of the South-South Cooperation. We are very grateful to the organizers of this very important meeting that you have chosen this venue, and we sincerely hope that you have a good work at the OAS, and that we can all enjoy these days and get as much profit as we can from them. Our warmest welcome to the House of the America. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General, for your opening remarks. And now we are moving into the segment of the high-level statements of this opening ceremony. Our first speaker is His Excellency, Mr. Abdul Kalam Abdul Momen, President of the UN High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation and Permanent Representative of the People's Republics of Bangladesh to the United Nations. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this 2014 Global South-South Development Expo on behalf of High-Level Committee of the UN on South-South Cooperation. My special thanks go to Organization of American States for graciously hosting this expo, and to the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation for organizing this annual event, which afford us the invaluable opportunity to celebrate and showcase the remarkable advances that are taking place across the countries of the Global South. I believe South-South cooperation in the present global context is not an option, but a must for enhancing international cooperation for development. Sooner we realize this, sooner the evolving global development architecture recognizes its importance, the better we are in structuring a holistic development process for the developing world. The magnitude of the contribution by the South to global economic activities has been recognized in the expression, the new geography of trade. Cooperation among developing countries is changing the landscape of international relations, particularly in trade, financial flows, and regional integration. Here I would stress most emphatically that South-South cooperation is not a substitute for, but rather a complement to North-South cooperation. The present structure of South-South cooperation and special focus on the most vulnerable countries, the least developed countries, the landlocked and the small island states, has been developed through major intergovernmental decisions, particularly those adopted by United Nations High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation. In less than a year, the global leadership once again will convene at the United Nations to make a forward-looking commitment that will set into motion a new set of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and more importantly, the means to achieve them. Therefore, scaling up of South-South and triangular cooperation for sustainable development is an appropriate theme for the Expo of this year. Let me welcome a recent decision by the UN to establish a multi-partner fund that will invest in social enterprises, which have the potential to scale up within the Global South. Considered a pioneering fund, the UN Social Enterprise Facility for the South will pool official development assistance and equity funds and initially support social enterprises in Asia and the Pacific. This facility has attracted interest from commercial banks, venture philanthropists, and hedge fund managers specializing in socially responsible investment funds. The outstanding achievements and initiatives that we are celebrating here this week are very relevant to post-2015 development agenda. We are shaping to secure peace, prosperity, and a healthy environment for all of us and for future generations to come. It is important to recognize the linkage between South-South cooperation with the effective realization of the Sustainable Development Agenda, especially with regard to poverty reduction efforts and social development, particularly in ensuring equality and empowerment of women. The strong economic performance and other successes of many countries in the South in recent years have heightened our hope and ushered in a range of new realities and achievers' expectation, with important implications on the options available to improve the human condition globally. Let me highlight some of the new realities. First, in 2012, the countries of the South accounted for half of the world's GDP, which is projected to reach 60% by 2030. And by 2025, the South is likely to account for 600 million households earning more than $20,000 per annum, and overall annual consumption of $30 trillion. Second, South-South trade has grown to unprecedented levels, not only exceeding trade with the North, but also moving towards trade baskets with more technologically sophisticated products. For example, statistics show that from 1990 to 2008, the volume of exports from developing countries grew consistently faster than exports from developed countries, or the whole world as a whole. While volume of exports between 2000 and 2008 basically almost doubled in the South, it increased merely 50% for the world. Third, finance is also trending up. The South provides more than a third of global investments, and the developing world is projected to account for more than half of total capital stock by 2030. Fourth, the global South produces half of the world's economic output, hold $5 trillion in reserves, and account for 47% of global trade, of which about half is South-South trade. Additionally, several countries of the global South have become economic powerhouses wielding significant influence. Fifth, the South is maturing technological capacity at affordable prices marked by new information and communications technologies, which are transforming traditional deficiencies into unprecedented new opportunities for development. Such noteworthy economic performance has translated into concomitant social gains in some countries of the South that have prudently invested in health, education, industrialization, and innovation, leading to significant progress in job creation and poverty reduction. Unfortunately, progress has been uneven in many dimensions across the South, and many countries continue to face extreme poverty, joblessness, rampant inequality, malnutrition, social and economic deprivation, health hazards, financial shocks and instability, vulnerability to climate and weather-related shocks and other challenges. In spite of progress and potential for growth, is it not a shame that till today, about 2.2 billion people live below the poverty level, and nearly 12% or 842 million people still suffer from chronic hunger, mostly in the South. Nearly 80% of the majority of the global population, mostly in the South, lack comprehensive social protection. Mostly in the South, millions suffer from acute shortage of essential infrastructure, while about 1.4 billion people still have no reliable electricity, 900 million lack access to clean water, and 2.6 billion do not have adequate sanitation. Nearly 200 million are being hard hit each year due to erratic climate change, and many of them are uprooted from their homes and from their livelihood, and overcrowding our towns and cities, creating slums. In addition, owing to violence, nearly another 45 million become refugees. In fact, millions of people in Africa, Asia, and Latin America lack basic health services that could save lives, and they also lack infrastructure and job opportunities that can improve their standard of living. Many are continuously vulnerable to life-threatening tropical and communicable diseases that are otherwise curable. This is nowhere more evident than countries in West Africa, where the recent Ebola outbreak has already claimed the lives of thousands. If this crisis worsens, the social and economic consequences may set the Ebola-affected countries backwards, reversing some gains that they have made in recent years. Same is equally true for climate-vulnerable countries. Many are afraid that their achievements in MDG goals might be wiped out if there is a big cyclone, tidal wave, flood, or drought. I have no doubt that South-South cooperation can contribute to the solutions needed to overcome common threats and transboundary development, challenges such as Ebola or other health pandemics that are too difficult for countries to tackle single-handedly. I am very pleased to learn that there is a session organized at this Expo on Ebola and how to respond to the epidemic through South-South cooperation. However, we should be mindful that each year millions of lives could be saved that are not in the media headlines if we effectively share our experiences and lessons learned for a better living with the countries from the South and in partnership with the North. South-South collaboration on health has become common and more effective, where a number of countries work together to promote joint research and development aimed at developing innovative drugs and vaccines for the prevention and treatment of various diseases. One such good example in the developing countries' vaccine manufacturers network that ensure a consistent and sustainable supply of quality vaccines to developing countries at affordable prices. Many countries of the South have acquired the technical skills, know-how, and solutions to other pressing development challenges in areas such as food security and nutrition, energy efficiency, social security, green technology, sustainable environment, affordable housing, small entrepreneurship, women empowerment, and the like. I'm glad that this Expo offers a strategic opportunity for all of us to take a closer look at such solutions, including the means for their replication and scaling up, with the support of all partners, both South, South, and North, to ensure their greater development impact, reaching MDGs and looking forward to attain the post-2015 development agenda and beyond. May I reiterate, the South-South and North triangular cooperation and partnership is essential for a win-win situation for all. In February next year, Bangladesh will be organizing a high-level South-South cooperation development event in Dhaka in collaboration with the UN Office of South-South Cooperation for a brainstorming session to articulate issues of the South regarding financing the post-2015 development agenda, removal of all existing tariff and non-tariff barriers, improving transport by all modes of communications, increasing foreign direct investment, flows to the most vulnerable countries, enhanced technical assistance and technology transfer, greater support to the social sector development with special attention to health, education, population issues, and women's empowerment, and cooperation in establishing food security for the most vulnerable countries. We look forward to your support, cooperation, and participation. Detail will follow soon. You all are welcome. Finally, I would like to once again thank all our United Nations partners, mayors, civil society, NGO and business leaders, experts, and delegates who have graced us with their presence at this Expo, and in particular, the organizers, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, as well as our host Organization of American States. Their efforts and hard work will be successful if we truly can realize our goal of pro-people, pro-planet, inclusive, and sustainable world for all of us, where extreme poverty and hunger would be history, where peace and stability, decent life and living for all would be a reality. I wish you a very fruitful and enjoyable Expo. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Momen. And I would like now invite Ms. Gina Casar, the Associate Administrator and UNDER Secretary General of the United Nations Development Program. Ms. Casar, you have the floor.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 2014 Global South-South Development Expo. Allow me to first warmly thank the Organization of American States and Secretary General José Miguel Insulza for generously hosting the Expo in Washington, D.C. Let me also congratulate the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, proudly hosted by UNDP, for organizing the Expo, for being a champion of cooperation and partnership across the Global South. The theme of this year's Expo, Scaling Up South-South and Triangular Cooperation for Sustainable Development, is particularly timely. Next year, 2015, world leaders will meet in Addis Ababa at the Financing for Development Conference, in New York for the UN Summit to adopt the new post-2015 agenda, and in Paris for the UN Climate Conference. The convergence of this and other important fora make it a decisive year. The decisions made will put the world on a trajectory to greater sustainability, equity, and prosperity. South-South and triangular cooperation already does and can increasingly help us to get on track. UNDP takes a proactive approach to supporting and facilitating South-South and triangular cooperation because we are convinced it is a necessary piece of the sustainable development puzzle. Without more and more effective cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships, including across and between countries in the Global South, the world is likely to fall short of addressing its shared and pressing challenges and miss out on the opportunity to improve the lives of people everywhere. With so much on the line, this is a risk we all cannot afford to take. South-South cooperation is a central part of the rise of the South, and the good news is that South-South cooperation is already embedded in the way countries in the Global South do business. With the risk to repeat what Ambassador Abul Abdul has already said, let me give you some quick facts. From 2008 to 2009, developing countries exported more to one another than they did to developed countries. Since 2011, developing countries have traded products and services worth more than $4 trillion. Investment flows to developing countries, much of it originating from the South, reached a new high in 2013, accounting for more than 50% of total global foreign direct investment. In 2011, the value of South-South development assistance was estimated to have reached between $16 to $19 billion. By some accounts, the real value is higher. The result has transformed the world economy and altered international relations forever. Hundreds of millions have been lifted from poverty, joining the ranks of the growing global middle class. However, such achievements are undoubtedly uneven within and between countries in the South. Rapid environmental degradation, extreme weather events, social instability, and violence have also left much of the new middle class feeling vulnerable, while threatening the livelihood and lives of those confined to poor communities. No one is safe from climate change, deforestation, water pollution, and increasingly extreme natural disasters. Without clean water, healthy air, or safe climate, no one can profit or prosper. A balance between economic growth and measures that improve people's lives will raise the prospect of our societies and protect the one planet on which we depend. The Global South has the biggest stake in ensuring that growth and prosperity is sustained, inclusive, and extends across the South. Through South-South cooperation, countries in the Global South are acknowledging that their fates are intertwined and that they must spare no effort to ensure that the jump in human progress is sustained. There are many encouraging examples. Let me go to some of them. The Sister Cities International Sino-African Initiative is a trilateral partnership among the cities of Nairobi in Kenya, Denver in the United States, and Kunming in China. This initiative aims to ensure development and poverty alleviation projects, address community needs, and promote transparent business practices and government accountabilities. As a result, access to safe water and toilets facilities to schools are successfully expanding in Nairobi. Another one, India Impex Sunlight off-grid solar lighting initiative has developed a simple lantern that works for approximately 8 to 9 hours on a single day's charge. UNHCR has procured these innovative solar lanterns for refugee camps in Kenya, Liberia, Sudan, and Uganda, among others. In Africa, Angola, Namibia, and the Republic of South Africa has formed the Benguela Current Commission, by which the three countries work together to protect an ecosystem that is highly rich in fish and other marine natural resources across their shared coastal waters in the Atlantic Ocean. In Latin America, the conditional cash transfer program Oportunidades Progresa in Mexico is scaling up success examples, and it has yielded important lessons to the world. These global examples are testament that solutions often emerge from where the challenges are. At UNDP, we are more committed than ever and uniquely prepared to support development partners in their efforts. We have placed South-South cooperation and triangular cooperation at the core of UNDP's Strategic Plan 2014-2017. Facilitating South-South and triangular cooperation is central to UNDP's ability to obtain development results. Through our presence on the ground in 177 countries and territories, UNDP offers global perspective, local insight, capacity and skills to link countries and communities to knowledge, best practices, and lessons learned. UNDP has also declared its commitment to become a knowledge broker through initiatives to identify, share, and adapt scalable and tested solutions from the South. I am very pleased that UNDP is joining so many other UN agencies here, along with a high-level representation from member states, to showcase successful South-South and triangular partnership solutions. The challenge we face now is to find ways that would enable us to effectively scale up proven solutions widely and sustainably together. South-South and triangular cooperation offer a path to balancing growth and equity in the context of a new collaborative global partnership for sustainable development. The spirit of solidarity that inspires South-South and triangular cooperation creates the perfect space for developing countries to share lessons on policy choices, business models, and technological innovations that have been effective in lifting millions of poverty. South-South cooperation holds the promise to make a difference in the lives of millions. As we approach the 2015 MDG target date, it is clear that strengthened efforts are needed to accelerate progress. And critical to success are broad-based global partnerships for sustainable development. All development partners are here this week, and together we can achieve much, much more than we can even imagine on our own. I really wish you all a very productive and rewarding Expo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Casar, for your remarks. And I now have the honor to inviting to the podium Ms. Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General de la Secretaría General Iberoamericana, SEGID.
Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Mr. José Miguel Insulza, President of the UN High-Level Committee on South-South Cooperation, Mr. Momen, friend, it's a pleasure to see you here. Director General of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, Mr. Leon, Undersecretary General Associate Administration of UNDP, Ms. Gina Casar. You know that I was in that position before. When I came to the table and I saw Associate Administrator, I almost sat there. We can exchange. Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, Mr. Christian Friesbach. Envoy of the UN, Secretary General and Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, Mr. Jipin Su. Jipin, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for inviting me. G77 Secretariat, Mr. Murat Amia. Dear friends from the unit of South-South, and so many friends from UNDP that I see here, colleagues and distinguished invitees. First of all, I really would like to thank the organizers of this Expo, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, and our dear host, Secretary General Jose Miguel Insulza, for inviting me and the Ibero-American General Secretariat to the South-South Global Expo. I have attended this Expo since 2012 from my former UNDP functions. We should actually congratulate the organizers for putting together once again this Expo on its 7th edition since the first meeting in New York in 2008. As we are all aware, major changes in the development landscape have placed the South firmly at the forefront of the global development discourse. This year's South-South Expo happens amid intense international efforts to accelerate progress on the achievement of the Millennium Development Goals by the end of next year, while we work on the definition of the next Global Development Agenda after 2015. At the same time, the South has assumed a greater role in the global development landscape as a source of innovation, knowledge, and solutions to development challenges. The South is influencing development cooperation at the global, regional, national, and local levels, making relevant contributions towards achieving the Millennium Development Goals and other internationally agreed development goals. It has become clear that when discussing about development, we can learn a lot from each other, but that there is no one-size-fits-all type of solutions. And what we all have is a lot to teach and a lot to learn from each other. I think that the emergence of the South has put that there are different trajectories to development that we all have to look at, learn from, but that adaptation to the conditions of each other will be as important to be successful and to learn also from the mistakes. At the same time, it's very important to collaborate in this globalized world. And we know that South-South cooperation can give a lot, but cannot substitute other forms of cooperation in the aid and cooperation arena. So we have to look at it as a complement and not as a substitute. You know, one of the things that are to emphasize from this new world and from the changing of the world and what we called the emergence of the South is that for the first time in history, we have that the main economies of the world are at the same time the biggest and maybe the main ones, but at the same time are developing countries. So they have a double responsibility. They have the responsibility to fight in their countries poverty and inequality. Still, most of the poor of the world live in the middle-income countries and in some of the biggest economies of the world. So they have to face the challenges of development inside their countries and at the same time assume the responsibilities of their new position in the world. And this double agenda is not free of tensions and tensions of priorities for the countries of the South. In Ibero-America, the community I represent, we are convinced of the fundamental contribution of South-South and triangular cooperation to advancing development and tackling common challenges. Indeed, as I have said, many times we know, as very well Gina Casar said before, that the solutions emerge where the challenges are. We have heard the calls of our countries in the Ibero-American Summit. We are, for those that haven't heard about us, we are 22 countries, 19 in Latin America and the Caribbean, and 3 in the Ibero Peninsula. And they have asked us to implement concrete measures to mainstream support for South-South cooperation, including triangular cooperation, in order to help countries build their capacities for maximizing the benefit and the impact of South-South and triangular cooperation, and for learning from each other, forging strategic partnerships, aimed at accelerating social and economic development in developing countries through transfer of knowledge, experience, and effective policy practices. And this is precisely the aim of this Global Expo, working together to find solutions that enable us to advance towards a common goal, sustainable development. And sustainable development is attainable only if we go for the triple wins. The wins to fight poverty and inequality, while simultaneously fostering inclusive development within the limits of the planet. You know, part of the problem of sustainable development and the three pillars of sustainable development, economic, social, and environment, is that we all come from different communities. And so when you talk to my community, the development practitioners, we say, yes, three pillars, economic, social, and environment, that the most important is poverty eradication. And then you go to my other community, because I come from the economic side, and you talk to the economists, and they say, yes, three pillars, but the most important thing is growth. And then you go to the environmental community, and they would say, yes, three pillars, but the most important is environment. And really the challenge that we have is that no matter what is our window of entry for sustainable development, we have to get to the same place together, to the same solutions that will allow us for the triple wins. And that's the contribution that we are trying to get from this knowledge sharing, this experience sharing, from this more horizontal way of doing cooperation that is the South-South cooperation. And this is very important now that we are in the midst of the post-2015 development agenda. Because we need to talk not only about the what, but we need to talk about the how. And precisely this Expo is a bridge between the what and the how and the discussions that we are having for the post-2015 agenda. Important, and was mentioned also before, you know, that we are also heading to the third International Conference on Financing for Development that will be held in Addis Ababa in July 13-16, 2015, and the how will be at the center of that discussion. I happen to have in my former life, you know, I was part of the high-level panel for Financing for Development when we went to Monterrey, Mexico. And many of the things we are discussing today is because we didn't implement what we decided in Monterrey up then. But one of the main changes from Monterrey to today is precisely this emergence of the South. And that South-South cooperation is today much more mainstream. We walk 40 years in the desert. You know, not everybody believed South-South was really an instrument for cooperation and development then. And now we know that everybody wants to come to this tent. And that has to be welcome. So I hope that really in the new conference on financing for development, we will try to complement all these efforts for the how and how we go for the post-2015 agenda. Now, let me just mention very briefly that the problem, and I have discussed this with YP many times, the problem is that experience is not enough. To get to the solutions, we need to transform experience into knowledge. And that leap is not a simple one, because it's nothing more difficult than systematizing experiences that are all over the world and making them able to be replicated somewhere else. So knowledge, transforming experience into knowledge, piloting, but not remaining in the pilot phase, but being able to scale up and replicate are really the three main components of solutions for development. So today we have more considerable data on South-South cooperation. I won't go through it because it has been precisely produced by the Committee of Experts on Financing for Sustainable Development and the Unit for South-South Cooperation, the division. But the important thing maybe that I can bring from our experience in Iberoamerica is that we can contribute in two useful ways. First, on our own experience on South-South cooperation projects and our experience to systematize data. So let me very briefly, because of the time, share with you that we have in the Ibero-American summit and conference a way of South-South cooperation that is worth looking at. First of all, countries affiliate to the programs voluntarily, according to the development priorities. Second, the programs and projects are mainly funded by the participant countries. So this dichotomy between donor and recipient is broken. And their governance is done through intergovernmental committee, and the technical unit is managed by one of the participating countries. And since 2007 to 2012, more than 7,000 projects and actions under bilateral horizontal South-South cooperation and 550 in triangular South-South cooperation have been carried out. In many areas: education, health, agriculture, industry, institutional strengthening, environment, sanitation, waste, and treatment, and renewable energy. Here we have the UNIDO Secretary General, so probably we will hear a lot about that. And we have systematized the data and the reporting of the countries during all these years, and we have one of the most looked for report on South-South cooperation that we have in the world. So I hope that our experience in the Ibero-American Summit can be shared with all of you, continue working with the UNDP, with all the UN agencies that are here, and be able to learn one from the other. I will elaborate more on these issues in the afternoon, but for now, I really hope this Expo will help all of us to bring South-South cooperation together with the debate on the post-2015 agenda implementation, drawing from all the experiences we are here to share. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Ms. Greenspan, for your presentation. And it's my honor now to ask Mr. Lee Young, Director General of UNIDO, to come to the podium and make his statement.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, it is my great pleasure to be here today at this 7th United Nations Global South-South Development Expo in Washington, D.C. I'm very much honored to address this distinguished audience, some new friends, some old friends, the UNIDO role in South-South cooperation, and our renewed mandate in inclusive and sustainable industrial development. And I'm proud to represent UNIDO at this year's Expo. UNIDO's collaboration with the GSSD and the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation is long-lasting. As a provider and a promoter of the Southern solutions, UNIDO has actively participated in every Expo since 2011. Indeed, especially in 2012, UNIDO proudly hosted the 5th Global South-South Development Expo, which was very successful with all the support of our colleagues and friends and the United Nations agencies and the member states in Vienna on the important subject, of investing in energy and climate change and inclusive partnerships of sustainable development. For UNIDO, the GSSD Expo has been a vibrant platform, and through solutions forums and mini forums for sharing our Southern success stories in industrial development and also in other important areas. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here in the Hall of Americas, where I been here quite some time when I worked at Washington, D.C. I wish to take this opportunity to thank our host, the Organization of American States, for their great efforts in hosting this year's Expo. For me, it is fitting to be back amongst so many partners and colleagues from Americas since holding our General Conference in Lima, Peru, December last year. It was an important event for UNIDO as a member states endorsed UNIDO's new mandate of inclusive and sustainable industrial development, our new mandate. In the presence of His Excellency, the President Humala of Peru, and the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Pakimon, inclusive and sustainable industrial development, in short, is ISID, will define UNIDO's future activities as we move towards the post-2015 development agenda, the new SDG. ISID represents UNIDO's concrete response to the Sustainable Development Goals. Through the concept of ISID, UNIDO continues to promote industrialization as a driver, important driver or key of development, because industry increases productivity, creating jobs, generating income, and thereby contributes to poverty reduction, our final goal. However, ISID goes a step further by integrating and balancing all three core dimensions of the sustainable development, the economic, social, and environmental dimensions. We can consider the impact of industrial development, not just on the economic growth, but also on the environment, on the communities, on the societies at large. This has been recognized in the outcome document of the Open Working Group. It's Goal 9, calling for promotion of inclusive and sustainable industrialization together with infrastructure and innovation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, if UNIDO and other international organizations are to meet the increasing complex development challenge of the 21st century, it is clear that South-South cooperation will be a vital instrument in encouraging innovation solutions required, and platforms such as GSSD will grow ever more important. Southern actors bring a much-needed diversity into development cooperation. The diversity of the knowledge and the technology offered by Global South adds to a complementary range of the solutions to far-reaching development challenges, often providing alternatives that are more contextually appropriate, affordable, and responsive to the Southern needs, and without conditionality, and with a facilitation of the South-South cooperation platform. This diversity of knowledge and technology is essential, as we know that there's no single development agency, no single development strategy, or no single government that can address all of the social, environmental, economic challenges as we are facing globally. And with the growing world population, if we want to achieve the required scale of development, we have to reach more regions, more people, more entrepreneurs, and more farmers. And therefore, integrated and multi-act responses with the full involvement of the Global South are required to tackle challenges like climate change, environmental degradation, economic recovery, and the rising youth and unemployment, and the industrialization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Lima Declaration is explicit in calling for strengthening existing and forging the new partnerships and networks at the global, regional, and the sub-regional level, and the full involvement of the relevant stakeholders. To this end, partnerships are essential if we are to overcome the prevailing development challenges facing by all of us and achieve global prosperity. We have recognized that one agency alone cannot fulfill this mandate. As such, one way in which we have chosen to operationalizing ISID has been through a new UNIDO partnership approach embodied in the programs of country partnership. For this, we seek a collective engagement of like-minded global partners, each making a specific contribution in terms of financial resources, knowledge, expertise, and technology. In order to establish UNIDO's partnership approach and put our ISID mandate into practice, we have held 2 forums this year. One in June, we call it the first forum, engaged participants in a strategic dialogue, drawing on international expertise and regional knowledge on how to develop their industrial development strategy, to formulate inclusive and sustainable industrial development strategy and policies, how to operationalizing these strategies by the member states themselves. The second forum was held 2 weeks ago in Vienna. In particular, the forum showcased UNIDO's ISID program for the country partnership to private and public stakeholders through 2 pilot initiatives in 2 countries, that's Ethiopia and Senegal. In the presence of the respective prime ministers, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, His Excellency Haile Mariam Desalegn, and the Prime Minister of Senegal, His Excellency Mohamed Dion, as well as the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Pakimon. This high-level endorsement of UNIDO's renewed mandate in ISID demonstrated the importance of forging multi-stakeholder partnership by pooling resources and competencies among a range of partners to foster collective action, with the southern partners increasingly taking the lead. I just would like to say, out of 430 participants, 2 prime ministers, 16 ministers, and 9 deputies, plus 6 commissioners. One of 430 participants were the private sector. So with this kind of gathering, we really put forward a kind of platform to help the countries with their industrialization strategy. Such a collective action is imperative if we want to achieve any further set of development goals and achieve high impact win-win industrial development. Our pilot program, colleagues, friends, will be very good platform for South-South cooperation. We just would like to incorporate this South-South cooperation into our GSSD program. And I met with quite a number of ministers. They approached to me, would like to have a kind of learning workshop from those countries moving ahead with industrial parks successfully, special economic zones successfully, and this will be a South-South cooperation. To be concrete, those countries will actually major partners of South-South cooperation. So through this learning process, South-South cooperation, we will see that how to create jobs, how to raise the income, and how to provide opportunities for women and the young people. So to be very, very candid and friendly, UNIDO would like to commit ourselves as one partner of this GSSD. And I believe South-South and the triangular cooperation has a great potential as a complementary source of knowledge, technology, and the funding to achieve development goals such as inclusive and sustainable industrialization. However, we need to support national governments in their capacity to access and integrate South-South cooperation to add value to their national industrial development plans by enhancing Southern skill development and increasing local technological capability. This calls for proven, replicable, and scalable Southern solutions for industrial development. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased that the Global South-South Development Expo will continue to make an important contribution in this regard. We at the UNIDO, together with our partners, UN family members, governments, and the private sector, and are happy and are committed to be a part of this important process, and are convinced that advances South-South cooperation for global development. Finally, I sincerely wish this GSSD Expo a great success and continued success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General Young, for your presentation. And now I have the honor to offer the floor to Mr. Christian Friesbach, Executive Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Europe.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to the UN Office for South-South Cooperation for inviting me to this important event, and to the Organization of American States for a warm welcome to this beautiful venue. Now, the Global South-South Development Expo has become the annual event for the promotion of South-South triangular cooperation, and we are very pleased to be here to share our experiences from housing and land and forestry, public-private partnerships. Right now, while we are speaking here, millions of primarily girls and women all over the world are walking long distances, carrying heavy woods of water and firewood on their back to their homes. They put themselves at risk to accidents and assaults. It prevents the girls from getting to school. It makes both the mother and the children sick when they then prepare the food over an open fireplace. Now, hopefully we will give these hundreds of millions of girls and women a strong promise next September. A promise to provide them with modern energy, clean water through a tap close to their house or even in the house. And hopefully next September we will agree on the most visionary development agenda ever, an agenda that can end extreme poverty. It will be a historic vision, and we would be the first generation to be able to achieve it. But in doing so, the engagement and the investments we need are gigantic. The World Economic Forum, the OECD, estimate that the global capital requirements to finance investments in key infrastructure between now and 2030 will be $75 trillion. It cannot be funded by governments alone. Moreover, we need the best ideas, innovations, the best technology. They will not be developed by public institutions alone. And that is why we need global partnerships, new partnerships, regional partnerships, local partnerships, and importantly, public-private partnerships. We need partnerships to scale up South-South and triangular cooperation for sustainable development, the exact theme of this year's Expo. And we need partnerships that provide access to public goods to even the most poor parts of our society and that ensure public goods of adequate quality and at affordable prices. It cannot be done by the private sector alone. So effective public-private partnerships need to be designed, involve all stakeholders, and require the governments as active partners. And all partnerships must adhere to the important principles of putting people first. It can be done. I've seen it at a local level in a village in Nepal, where an innovative partnership between public, private institutions and companies in both technology diffusion and financing had created off-grid solutions in the mountain areas of Nepal with micro-hydro, solar, biogas. It had energized the village so that the heat tailored along throughout the night. The children could do their homework, and even the chicken in that village had light during the night, which meant that they ate more, they grew faster, and then they, of course, died earlier. But that is how it is to be a chicken. These schemes were planned by the government, the technology approved by the government, the financing models created by the government through Nepal's Alternative Energy Promotion Center. But the schemes were run by private companies and with the engagement of citizens. It's done in water, despite all the sensitivities of water being a human right, a diverse consumer base, complexities of water supply with its status as a national monopoly. In the Philippines, the Manila Water Project has dramatically improved water and sewage services for more than 11 million people. Households now have reliable 24-hour access to clean water. Private partners have invested billions to expand, improve the water and sewage systems, resulting in better service, lower rates, significantly fewer leaks. And the company's Water for the Poor program has allowed residents, even in the poorest neighborhoods, to pay just $1.5 a month for clean water, a fraction of what they paid before. So we need so many more models like this. The principles, based on the principles of accessibility and affordability and incentives to the private sector to invest in water, in energy, to all the infrastructure we need, and to the benefit also of poor citizens. Now, to do this, there's a need for a very complex legal and policy framework. Take sustainable energy for all. The pricing framework in order to achieve it is extremely complex. The 3 targets. Now, if we need access to modern energy to all, we need prices to be low. If we want energy efficiency to go up, we need prices to be high. But if we want renewable energy to come in, we need the prices to be right. This is an extremely complex pricing and legal framework. And doing so, countries, communities all over the world are experimenting. And that is why we need sharing experiences, South-South, North-South, triangular, just as we do it right here. The global financing models are also very complex. When I was Minister of Development for Denmark, I sometimes felt more like a venture capitalist, because we developed numerous new innovative financing models, guarantee schemes for SMEs, innovative financing mechanisms, investment funds, where we took a little bit of the risk with public money. Then we got in the pension funds and investment funds by co-financing models, and then we invested together with private companies. For $1 public dollar, I could get climate investments of $10. It was a good investment for the government, it was a good investment for pension funds, and it was a good investment for private companies. And we see numerous of these new mechanisms being developed, green bonds, financing schemes, funds. The World Bank, the regional development banks are really taking the lead. But we must share these experiences. What we can do in the UNECE is not as much perhaps technology or financing, but what we do is very much standards. For more than 60 years, the UNECE has specialized in bringing countries together and helped them to convene and cooperate on new standards, best practices, guidelines, agreements, and conventions. It has led to a remarkable range of standards, hundreds and hundreds of them, that has a direct impact on people's lives, from transport to trade, agriculture, forest, energy, housing, environment. And standards are really important to promote cooperation because they support global goals and policy discussions all over the world. They allow companies to explore larger markets, and it guides them how to invest and innovate. And it helps citizens to get assurance of what they buy is what they get. Standards can spur cooperation between countries, communities, companies, and citizens in meeting the future Sustainable Development Goals. And we need to take these global goals and turn them into standards, norms, best practices, and agreements. Sustainable development, sustainable energy is just one example. We need strong standards for energy efficiency and renewable energy, from window frames to water pumps and windmills. And this is where UNECE can really contribute. And this is also what we do when it comes to private-public partnerships. We develop standards. The state of the art in PPPs is constantly developing. New concepts, new frameworks are tested. Complex legal, financial, institutional models are being developed. There are successful public-private partnerships, but there are also very many public-private partnerships that fail. Therefore, if we can provide governments and communities and citizens and companies with the best standards to achieve PPP success stories, it will gain and it will benefit everybody. And that is why we are in the UNECE embarking on developing best practices and international standards on PPP as a mechanism for governments to access private sector know-how, innovation and finance and bring more services to their citizens. And we are putting people first in doing so, the premise and the foundation of UNECE PPP work all over the world. And then we bring together all the actors, the UN family, the World Bank, international organizations, civil society and companies. With our 56 member countries, from the US to Russia, from Finland to Kyrgyzstan, UNECE is indeed both south-south, north-south and triangular. And our work goes way beyond our membership and reach the rest of the world. So tomorrow, at the Scaling Up session on UNECE's work on public-private partnerships, we will show how it works. We will show the PPP solutions that can allow companies and governments to work together and challenge and bring a new infrastructure to their citizens. And we will show how it can be scaled up and replicated in many countries. Our vision is to build a global partnership for sustainable infrastructure development with the UN, the EU, the World Bank, ADB, private sector, civil society. And we bring in the standards and best practices as our part of the work. So I invite all of you to join us. Help us forge this global partnership towards sustainable development. Help us to assist all citizens of the world to live a life in dignity and with security. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bach, for your presentation. The message from the chair of the G77, Ambassador Kingsley Mamabolo, permanent representative of South Africa to the United Nations, will be made available later during the session. Thank you. Now we move on to our next phase, and we thank you again to the presenters here at the Hague table. And now we will be inviting our colleagues from representing different institutions, the directors of different institutions, and speaking on behalf of the chair of the OECD DAC, Mr. Eric Solheim, we will now hear the statement from Mr. John Lomoy, who's director of the OECD Development Cooperation Directorate. Mr. Lomoy, you have the floor.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to this event. It's the second time, and every time I'm equally awestruck. Last time was in Hofburg in Vienna, and of course this building can almost compete with that historic. So thanks to the Organization for African States also for hosting us here. As we've been reminded earlier today, we're entering into an extremely important year when the world is going to try and shape our agenda, set our targets, our ambitions for the next 15 years. We don't know exactly what it will look like, but we have a sense that it will be ambitious. Many of us hope and believe firmly that the slogan, "Leave no one behind," that was coined by the high-level panel, will remain as part of the agenda. And we also see that it will be ambitious because it will be broader than the MDGs, because it will be more integrated, and because it will be more universal. And that's the reason why I think the topic for this year's event, Scaling Up, is important. And I think since I, in some ways, represents the old guys, let me put it this way. I mean, the shifts that have been described, they are there because development is happening. I mean, the shifting global economy is about development. This is development happening in practice. So for those of us who are in the development profession, this is good news. I've noticed that the celebration that the greatest global celebration that never took place was in 2011, when we had actually succeeded in halving global poverty. And we didn't take time to celebrate. I think we should regret that, while remaining that the other half will be tougher than the first half. So the shift is not a threat. It's welcome. Neither is it an excuse, as we was reminded to our members. And of course, there is a perception out there that ODA is declining. That's wrong. 2013, ODA actually reached the highest level ever in history. That's the empirical fact. The other interesting fact that our statistics shows was that the best performer globally in terms of ODA to GNI was none of our members, unfortunately. It was the United Arab Emirates. So one of the southern providers. It also showed that another southern provider, Turkey, was better than the DAC average in terms of ODA to GNI. And of course, we know that because these two and some other southern providers have chosen to report their important activities into the statistical system, making it information about it available to the world. So we need more scaled-up South cooperation, not because we have less of other resources, but because we have more challenges to deal with. The triangle cooperation, which is the part of this agenda where we think that we have a contribution to make, is important. It's got a great potential for helping to achieve the new development goals. And the lexicon of examples is growing. My staff here have mentioned to me the Cook Island Water Project, for example, where Cook Islands, China, and New Zealand go together to improve water quality and address sanitation issues. Pro-Savannah, where attempts are made with Japanese funding and Brazilian experience in capturing East Savannah for food production and sustainable agriculture is brought to Mozambique. The public sector training and development project in post-conflict countries, where Canada is helping South Africa, Rwanda, Burundi, Southern Sudan share experience in promoting peaceful and inclusive societies by improving public service delivery. So we have a growing number of examples like this, where we see know-how, skills, experiences, and resources from providers of development cooperation, from international organizations, and from southern partners being combined. And of course, these new ways of combining are important because the if I could put it that way, the geography of problems and solutions are shifting. So problems can be found in the most unexpected places, and solutions can be found in the most unexpected places. The added value of triangular cooperation is, of course, exactly bringing together these different partners, allowing the mix of knowledge, advice, and resources to address complex needs and common challenges. Since we're convinced about the value added of triangular cooperation, we're also committed to promoting it. And of course, since we don't have any money, OECD is not is a club of the rich, but unfortunately we don't have any money to we're not involved in financing. Our resource is sharing is knowledge, and particularly the knowledge of our members, and bringing that together. So what we've been doing together with many of you over the past couple of years is to engage in a series of activities, studies, seminars, workshops, looking at triangular cooperation that ended up in a senior level dialogue that brought together 70 representatives from 47 countries and organizations in Lisbon. We want to continue this work. We think there's scope for improvement in tracking flows and other information about triangular cooperation. We think there's scope for improvement in identifying and systematizing good practices in the implementation. We think it is important to encourage more and better evaluation of triangular cooperation, to learn from experience and to disseminate results. We think fostering further dialogue and sharing our lessons is important, and we think, as is the topic, the main focus of this conference, that moving from a large series of small and good projects into scalable, large-scale activities that can bring not only hundreds and thousands and 10,000s out of poverty, but bring millions out of poverty is the real important challenge as we look forward. And sharing experience is, of course, what OECD does. So that's our business line. We do believe that that can only happen if we bring together the practitioners in an open and inclusive partnership. If we turn our attention around a moment, we celebrate that there is an increasing diversity of sources of development funding, public, private, as former Minister Friesbach has said, also new ways of combining public and private, from old donors, from emerging donors, concessional, non-concessional. One of the important things we need to focus more on, I think, is assisting developing countries in managing diversity. Optimal management of these diversity of sources of funding, of sources of experience. It prevents unique opportunities for developing countries, but it represents also a management challenge. One way of facilitating this management challenge, which we're deeply engaged in, is, of course, to provide information, to provide data on the different sources of funding, and thereby enabling countries, developing countries, to make more informed choices about which sources of funding, which type of funding, from where, for what purpose, could be available for them to meet their development challenges. That's why we're also involved in a reform of our own measurement system in order to make it more adjusted to this changing reality. And we welcome, of course, those southern providers who, on the basis of their own assessment, choose to report their assistance through our system. We encourage the UN and others to work with providers of South cooperation and triangle cooperation to collectively improve the available information and the statistics about South cooperation. And lastly, that's a small personal wish. I'm not quite sure if Solheim would have had this on his list, but that is that we've heard a lot about the transformation of the South today, and that's extremely important. I think one of the things where I hope this Expo can also help us in the future is to see how does this enormous transformation of the South transform South cooperation. What is happening to South cooperation as the South, as some providers of South cooperation are becoming members of the G20, are becoming among the maybe the largest economies of the world, so that we can get a better understanding of the dynamics also of this increasingly important part of development cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lomoy. And now, on behalf of the Director General of FAO, Mr. Jose Graciana da Silva, we will now hear his statement from Nicholas Nelson, Director of FAO Liaison for North America.
Good morning to all, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege and honor for me to address you today on behalf of Mr. Jose Graciano da Silva, Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, at the opening of this Global South-South Development Expo 2014. I'm extremely grateful to the Organization of American States and the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation for inviting me to make a presentation at this prestigious forum. The FAO has a long-standing commitment to South-South cooperation with over 30 years of significant accomplishments in facilitating South-South partnerships and exchanges. Over the years, the FAO has been involved in fielding more than 1,900 Southern experts to over 80 host countries to share knowledge, innovation, and technologies, helping local partners to improve their expertise in food and agriculture production and ensuring food security. A few examples. Chinese rice fish technology has transformed livelihoods of thousands of farmers in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And drip irrigation technology enabled Nigerian farmers to grow crops during the dry season, which significantly increased their incomes. Another example, serious injuries incurred by lobster fishers in the Republic of Nicaragua were reduced through learning routes and sharing knowledge of simple practices such as seabed casitas that are extensively used in Mexico. Also, survival rates of catfish and tilapia were improved in the Republic of Namibia, boosting the aquaculture sector through shared expertise from Vietnam. And finally, 15 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean and Africa are strengthening the links between family farming and school meal programs, adapting the successful experience from Brazil. There is no doubt that the demand for South-South cooperation is gaining momentum every day. The Southern innovation is generating new tools and partnerships for tackling issues of food insecurity, poverty, and sustainable agriculture. The Global South offers a myriad of development solutions, knowledge, experiences, and good practices, innovative policies, technology, know-how, and resources that have proven cost-effective with a huge upscaling potential. Demand for tried and proven Southern technologies, innovation, experience, and know-how is at an all-time high. South-South cooperation is the answer. It offers a highly relevant, cost-effective, and alternative means of development cooperation based on key principles of solidarity amongst the South and mutual benefit. Director General Graciano da Silva is personally committed to promoting South-South cooperation, as well as strengthening all partnerships as a key delivery tool of the FAO's working areas. For this reason, the FAO is redesigning its South-South cooperation strategy to further capitalize on this wealth of Southern solutions and jointly promote adapted knowledge and development solutions upscaling. The FAO is extensively promoting, facilitating, and creating an enabling environment to allow many South-South cooperation initiatives to grow. In addition, FAO is broadening these exchange modalities beyond the long-term deployment of experts to include exchanges of various types and durations, study tours and training, technology transfers, strengthening of Southern networks, and hubs that help connecting demand and supply and promoting policy-level dialogue. Our South-South cooperation efforts help countries reach their sustainable development and food security and nutrition goals and are framed by the strategic objectives they have set for the organization. Reduce hunger and malnutrition, promote sustainability, reduce rural poverty, improve efficiency and inclusiveness of food systems, and build resilience. The FAO's invigorated South-South cooperation approach has recently received a very positive response from Southern partners to facilitate these activities. In closing, I wish you all a very fruitful Global South-South Development Expo 2014. Having hosted the Expo in Rome in 2011, the FAO firmly supports raising the visibility and profile of South-South cooperation and its central role in realizing the post-2015 agenda. Hunger and malnutrition can be eradicated from our world within our lifetime. The FAO is committed to partnering with a wide range of Southern development actors to turn this vision into a reality where everyone has a role to play. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson, for your statement on behalf of the Director General of FAO. Please convey our regards to Mr. Da Silva. Now, on behalf of the Executive Director of UNEP, Achim Steiner, we will now hear his statement from Mr. Munja Ratsi Chengyong.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers and partners, ladies and gentlemen. I have the privilege of delivering these few remarks on behalf of the Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, Mr. Achim Steiner. UNEP had the privilege to host last year's Global South-South Development Expo in Nairobi, in Kenya. It took place 1 year after the Rio Plus 20 conference and a few months before the 50th anniversary of the Group of 77. And it was an historic event. It was the first time that the Expo was taking place in the Global South. And for the first time in GSSD Expo history, social media was extensively used, not just to garner global attention to the issue, but to extend discussions and dialogues to the next generation of development practitioners, entrepreneurs, environmentalists, thinkers, and leaders. We had over 13 million followers during the 5-day event. South-South cooperation is an important part of UNEP's work. Indeed, today, it is perhaps a dominant part of much of the work that we are undertaking across the planet. This year, UNEP established a South-South Cooperation Fund and a partnership fund to strengthen our work and to work through partners to address environmental sustainability challenges. Across the globe, South-South cooperation is changing the landscape of sustainable development. The nations of the Global South have had a shared history of the progress and challenges in development, and today we can safely say that this cooperation is ensuring more equal and effective development than ever before. But there remain enormous and complex global challenges still to overcome. Poverty and inequality remain obstacles to sustainable development. Climate change, food insecurity, the financial crisis, water crisis are all part of the sustainability challenges we face, with the impacts being widely felt by the poor and most vulnerable, mostly from the Global South. And it is important to note that while the world's rich and poor nations face a common environmental threat, they do not have common and equitable resources to diverse sustainable development challenges. While the world has come to the stage where technology is critical for development, the question remains how to ensure that the necessary technology transfer to the Global South happens. and in a way that nurtures green, effective, and sustainable economies. We have seen that it is in the Global South where there is a new frontier of solutions to protect the planet. We hope that the Expo series that brings us all together will promote the closer interagency and multi-stakeholder dialogue and collaboration that is indeed to strengthen South-South and triangular cooperation and bring solutions to the global level where they can be shared, replicated, and scaled up. And with less than a year to go, when world leaders will adopt at the 70th session of the General Assembly in New York in September next year, the post-2015 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, there is an all-time global demand for identifying, adopting, and implementing these kinds of successful solutions that will bring forward green and sustainable economies of the future. This Expo is one of the building blocks towards the successful integration of the 3 dimensions of sustainable development. Finally, I would like to thank this year the Office of the South-South Cooperation for organizing this year's Expo and for the Organization for American States for successfully hosting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your statement. Please convey our regards to Mr. Steiner. Now, on behalf of the Executive Director of ILO, Mr. Guy Ryder, we will now hear the statement from Mr. Jürgen Schöttmann, Director of the ILO Department of Partnerships and Field Support.
Good morning, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to speak on behalf of the ILO, of Mr. Guy Ryder, the Director General, and I would like to thank the Office for South-South Cooperation of the United Nations and the Organization of American States to host this event. This is now the 12th speech this morning, and I will be brief because much of what I would like to say has already been said. The ILO has been an active partner of the GSSD since 2009, and in 2010 we were hosting the event in Geneva, in our headquarters. On that occasion, 3 countries from the South, India, Brazil, and South Africa, the so-called IPSA group, signed an agreement to support jointly the decent work agenda of my organization. The ILO is indeed committed to South-South and triangular cooperation as a means to advance the decent work agenda. And our governing body adopted in March 2012 a strategy on South-South and triangular cooperation entitled The Way Forward. And just last week, our governing body discussed a new development cooperation strategy for our organization, the ILO. And in the debate, our constituents, the workers, employers, and governments made it very clear that South-South cooperation, should not be seen as something about financing only. South-South cooperation must be around the exchange of experience, knowledge, expertise, and the exchange of solutions. And that's why we are here. And secondly, our constituents also made it clear that South-South cooperation should not be a replacement as a substitution for North and South cooperation. It should not be seen as an excuse by developed countries to reduce ODA. I think we have to bear this in mind, South-South cooperation being a complement to North-South. The principles that characterize South-South cooperation are very much those that are inherent to the decent work agenda, which consists of 4 mutual reinforcing objectives, strategic objectives. The promotion of workers' rights, the creation of employment and enterprises, the extension of social protection, and the promotion of social dialogue between workers, employers, and governments. These universal principles provide the basis for an integrated and sustainable development and growth agenda. The ILO considers social dialogue between the 3 parties as being the basis for any sustainable development and also a major tool for South cooperation. The ILO recognizes the potential that South-South and triangular cooperation can play in the future sustainable development framework, which has been cited so many times this morning, and believes that the SSDC needs to be properly recognized in the future development framework. We are, of course, happy to note that the Open Working Group has proposed a Sustainable Development Goal number 8, entitled Promote Sustained, Inclusive and Sustainable Economic Growth, Full and Productive Employment, and Decent Work for All. We believe that this global goal, plus decent work-related targets under other goals, will be an indispensable response to the concerns of many governments and the demand of people around the globe. Irrespective of their development status, all countries in the world have something to offer, and South-South and triangular cooperation provides a mechanism to draw on those solutions from the South. This includes the so-called fragile to fragile cooperation. That is the mutual technical assistance between countries that recognize themselves as fragile. In this context, the ILO Solutions Forum, which will take place here in the OAS on Wednesday morning, will provide an opportunity to highlight the efforts of the G7 plus group of fragile states and the ILO to promote such fragile to fragile cooperation. On March this year, during a high-level panel on decent work in fragile states, the ILO Director General, Mr. Guy Ryder, and the General Secretary of the G7 plus, Mr. Helder da Costa, who will join us for this meeting, signed a memorandum of understanding to support the New Deal for engagement in fragile states, with a special focus on the state-building and peace-building goals. Indeed, we believe that fragile to fragile cooperation should be an essential element of South-South. The ILO Solution Forum on Wednesday will address also important issues for the ILO, such as the prevention and elimination of child labor. Last year, during the 3rd Global Conference on Child Labor held in Brazil, countries from Latin America and the Caribbean joined efforts to eradicate child labor in the whole American region. This was a milestone in the consolidation of the regional initiative for Latin America and the Caribbean to be child labor-free by the year 2020. It represents a commitment by 25 countries to enhance national capabilities and create a multiplier effect in various sectors related to the elimination of child labor in the region within 5 years. Finally, building on past years' experience, the ILO Solution Forum will continue highlighting the links between South-South cooperation and the social and solidarity economy, which is a powerful instrument to bring about decent work in the South. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and also please our best regards to Mr. Ryder. With the presentation of Mr. Schurtman, we conclude this all the high-level statements. I would like to thank all of our distinguished speakers during this high-level opening ceremony. I also want to recognize the presence in the audience of the chair of the LDCs, the ambassador and permanent representative of Benin to the United Nations, Mr. Francis Nasu. As I said, with these statements, we conclude the high-level opening ceremony of the Global South, and I would also ask you to finish this first part with a round of applause for our speakers. I now would ask you, all of you, to please remain in your seats as the Secretary General of the OAS, as well as Ms. Gina Casar, the Associate Administrator of UNDP, and Mr. Yiping So, Director Director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, lead the high-level panel members to the exhibition floor for the ribbon-cutting ceremony to inaugurate the Solutions exhibition in the Hall of Heroes, adjacent to this room. Please remain seated while our panelists exit the room. And I would like to inform you that you can follow the ribbon cutting and the walkthrough tour of the exhibition here in the screen in the room. I'll be back shortly to give you some important announcements, so please, if you can remain in your seats.